Yeah, Brent, I'm really enjoying these 50 state haunt videos we're doing.
Yeah, I am too. Getting some good ideas for places to go whenever I'm out and about, if we go traveling or anything. My wife and myself both, every single time we usually go to any kind of new place, one of our favorite things to do is go on ghost tours and learn some history of the place, get some haunts of the place and all that. So this is my virtual ghost tours, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I've been wanting to go to a lot of places, well, within reason, obviously, to kind of gander around and see what kind of paranormal events I can experience myself. And this definitely opens up the horizon for that opportunity.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about it. Well, you ready to get into this Colorado it is this week?
Yeah, man, we can jump straight into the Colorado, but before we go into Colorado, are we going to hit the wheel so that we know what we're going to do next episode?
Absolutely. If you want to go ahead and pull that wheel up,
All right. We're going to go ahead
and
and
let's hit.
spin it.
And we got
New Hampshire.
perfect.
All right.
I'm
We
sure
like
there's
New
some spooky
Hampshire.
places there.
So let's go ahead and let's add that to the list here. New Hampshire. All right, cool.
That list is going to look very large here in
Yeah.
just a few months.
Next episode is going to take up the bottom portion, and then we're going to have to kind of move this over to the side, make it a little
Absolutely.
smaller. All right, well, let's go back
Absolutely.
and let's get into it, man. Do you want to start off with your first one, or do you want me to go?
First things first, everyone, welcome to Strange Embers. Why don't you go ahead and jump into yours first? I only
All
have
right, cool.
two this time. I have some special mentions, I guess you'd say, at the end for places for if anybody wants to look up and find out more about. But besides that, you have three this time.
I've got three. So I've got a long one, a medium one, and a short one. So you tell me whichever one you want me to go into first. We'll jump right into it.
Let's go medium. Let's go
Go
medium
medium.
first.
All right. So
Yep.
medium is going to be the Victor Hotel. It was built in 1894 after being claimed a gold town by the Woods brothers. To accommodate travelers, this hotel would feature electricity unlike any other hotel in the area. So, in a lot of these gold towns in Colorado, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, fires were rampant everywhere. So, this one just so happened to have a fire that swept through the area in 1899. The hotel engulfed in flames, as well as the remaining bits of the town, in as little as 5 hours. So, in 5 hours, the whole town was gone.
Wow. That reminds me of San Francisco, I believe. Didn't it burn down three times?
I think it is it San Francisco?
I can't remember. It's one of the. I think it is San Francisco. I don't know. I'll have to look back into it, but I think it is them. That's city burnt down two or three times.
That's crazy. And San Francisco is
Yep.
a pretty decent sized city.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So this
that
place burnt pretty much all
yeah,
the way to the ground.
all the way to the ground. Yeah, like the whole town. So all the town people got together and they were like, you know what, the gold's so great here, we're just going to rebuild it and move on. So that happened in 1899 when everything burnt down. The building was reconstructed that exact same year, but instead of it being in a wood based platform, it was built into brick.
It's funny because as I was looking through Colorado, you're talking about the gold being there. Like so many of these haunted places throughout Colorado has to do with gold mines, gold towns, everything during that gold booming area. It was a
Yep.
lot of stories based back to that.
Yeah, it's and heck, people still go to gold mine in Colorado. They go do gold prospecting in the creeks and stuff like that.
Do people
So
still actually do mines in Colorado, or is
I
that a
wouldn't
thing
say
of past now? Do
mining.
you know?
No, not mines, but more because everybody goes to panning and using the big
Right.
machines and things of that nature.
It's more open air mining, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and there I go again saying and things of that nature, which is a funny thing that I'm going to say a lot, obviously, because I went back in our last episode and heard myself say things of that nature about 10 times. Your lovely host Brent mentioned that to me. Uh, so the building was reconstructed in the brick in the late 1899, which is the same year it was burnt down. It also hosted the Brothers Investment Company and the First National Bank, which I thought was pretty cool. First National Bank was actually implemented in this hotel.
It is.
During
That's very
yeah, during the cold freezes, there was no way for them to excavate the ground to bury bodies or anything like that. So what they would actually do is they would take these dead bodies up the elevator and store them on the fourth floor until the ground would thaw out so that they could have a proper burial for them.
really.
Yeah.
So, like, as in just on the floor of this place, or is it like an attic, or do you
No,
know?
it's the fourth floor. There's more than four floors. The
So
fourth
that just became
floor,
the morgue
the
floor?
fourth floor was the morgue. Yes. I'm gonna go through a couple reports here, and then we'll get into one particular phenomenon that happened. Several people have reported sights of disembodied figures on the fourth floor. Also, reports of seeing doctors and patients, sometimes without arms, legs, and the occasional head missing. Misty
Oh,
figures
wow.
roam. Yeah, misty figures roam the halls during the day and night. Footsteps can be heard during late night and early mornings, particularly around 2, 3 a.m. Cold air rushes the hair of visitors in all corridors of this building, as well as
Oh,
having
it's 3
kitchen.
AM.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's something about that time. As well as having kitchen utensils getting thrown at them and sometimes coming up missing from the dining area. So that's just a couple of the reports. One of the most prevalent ghosts that resides at the Victor is named Eddie. Eddie was reported to have fallen down the elevator shaft years and years and years and years ago. When Eddie stayed there, he stayed in room 301. So if you want to experience any kind of paranormal activity, from what reports say, that's the room you want to be in. Because people have seen him in that room, heard him talk in that room, breathe in that room, walk. They've also seen him in the hallways. They've seen him on the fourth floor, walking up and down the hall. But most importantly, they see him in the elevator, which would make sense because he did fall down the elevator shaft.
So now we're talking about the elevator shaft from 1890s.
Yes. But this elevator
So
shaft is the exact same as it was, but it's been obviously renovated and
modernized.
yeah, and it's maintained to this day. But even
Okay.
with the inspections and maintenance that is being done on it, it still randomly activates by itself going to and from the third floor with no one near it.
Nice.
Yeah. And obviously, like I said before, between 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock is when the paranormal
The
activity seems
bewitching
to be.
hour.
Yeah, it's when the paranormal activity seems to be the highest in this particular hotel. So, but that's all I got for the Victor. I thought it was pretty interesting little place to. If I go to Colorado, that would be one of the places I'd actually like to stay.
Yeah, I've been out to Colorado a few times myself. I'd love to go back, and there's a lot of places that I would like to visit. Even doing the research for this episode, there's several places I found that I would love to go back out there and visit and find what I can find there.
Yeah, I've never been to Colorado, but it definitely strikes me to be a pretty cool little place.
Oh man, it is beautiful there. The You said about the seeing disembodied figures, daylight, dark, and misty figures. I mean,
Yeah.
for you, let's just say you're there right now. It's all right, we'll go to the bewitching hour. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black. You see one of these. What do you think that's like compared to it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon? It's daylight and you see a misty figure. I mean, do you think for you, would it have a different effect on the spookiness for it for you?
I feel like it would definitely be a lot more spooky at night versus in the daytime.
I mean, what makes you say that? Is it the whole entire you have light so you can you know where you're going, you don't have to look for doors, you don't have to look for stairs, you kind of know where you're at versus if it's nighttime, you don't see where you're going, you're up under a flashlight or does that add the more what's going to happen effect for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't, man, dude. To be honest, I was scared of the dark for half of my childhood. So I guess that is probably more of a mental thing for me. Plus, if it's daylight, I feel like my brain's going to try to compensate and say, oh, well, you're seeing this because maybe the light's reflecting off of this mirror, or a car passed by and it hit this glass pane at a right angle and it just threw some kind of weird glare. I mean, those kind of deals.
Yeah, I mean, for me at nighttime, say if it's dark, the misty figure I think would have more an ominous kind of presence to it at 3 o'clock in the morning versus the shadow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the misty, but then during the daylight, or I'm sorry, I said that the wrong way around. That would be during the daytime, it would, but at nighttime, there's not any shadows, and you see a shadow go by at 3 o'clock in the morning versus 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The shadow, it probably wouldn't, I can discount that some, but the mistiness at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's the one that I would probably pay more attention to. Just like at nighttime, a mistiness at night, I'm not going to pay as much of attention to that as I am that shadow that goes by in the dark.
Right.
That's going to be the one that, yeah. So I mean,
Just the
it's kind of
things
one of
that
the,
don't add up together for the time period.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's stuff I'm down for. I mean, I love this stuff. I would love to run into things like that. It's very very intriguing for me. All right, so next we got Phantom Canyon Road. So Phantom Canyon Road connects Central City to Victor, Colorado. This road's about 30 miles long. It changes in elevation from I don't have it wrote down in my notes. Just from reading it, it was like 9,000 something about 9,000 feet elevation down to right about 5,000 feet elevation in those 30 miles.
No, that's pretty
Um,
significant elevation drop.
yeah, and this is just a dirt road now. Originally in 1912, this was a railroad track road to begin with. So whenever the mining, actually, we're going to go back to the mining again. So whenever they were mining out through there, this road that was there at that point in time was railroad tracks. It was a rail car. In 1912, when the mining declined, they decided to dismantle these railroad tracks that went through there. Took them about 3 years to dismantle all the tracks that went down through there and pull all that up. After they did in 1918, so several years after that, that'd have been 1915, would have been when it was dismantled. 1918 is when it opened to automobiles, which I mean, automobiles were kind of new to the scene then as well, right?
Yeah, indeed they were.
So we have that 30-mile road now. It is an upkept gravel road till this day, and that's considered to be one of the most beautiful drives in Colorado. It follows the original Florence and Cripple Creek Railroad. This road that goes through there, it has narrow bridges on the road that you go through. It has two different tunnels that was basically hand chipped through these. There's two tunnels that you drive through on the way through. And the landscape is said to be pretty much unsullied through time. That whatever you could go drive the road right now, and it's pretty much the same thing the late 19th century travelers would have looked at whenever they went down through there as well.
Really?
So the landscape is beautiful through there. Anybody that's been to Colorado already knows the landscape in Colorado is amazing.
So
But
you're saying like
so there,
these tunnels are like still whenever they would chisel them out TNT all the way through to get from point A to point B.
oh, oh, they're rough. Just I'm gonna post pictures of it on our Instagram of these tunnels. But these tunnels, there, it's not like you're going through a tunnel now where it's this architectured, cement, brick laid, whatever,
Right.
and it's perfect dome. Oh no, these things are rough. It looks like
You're just driving through a
the
mountain.
road. Yes, exactly. It's not any kind of these tunnels. They're not super long or anything, but it's not like it's a tunnel that was cut and they put all these supports in them or any. It's nothing like that. They're very rudimentary. And I mean, God, can you imagine that makes that drive probably even so much better to see that. So there are better than 500 mines that was on this land that was down through there. So, off of that being said, I don't know how many stops when this was a railroad. I don't know how many stops it made or any of that. But I mean, we know from going through more and more of these stories that a lot of these stories base out of mine towns and the mines that are there as well.
Yep. I,
So, Phantom Canyon, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would think that the train, because you know how hard it is for a locomotive, especially back then, whenever it's coal driven, to get up and start going, getting the momentum and stuff.
Right?
I'm certain there's probably some kind of pickup and drop off location for the gold between the
Oh, there's
towns.
gotta there's gotta be. There was I don't think I have it wrote down on either one of these, but if I remember right, it said, I mean, we're talking about late 1800s, early 1900s, and I think it was on one of them I read, it said it was either one particular mine or that area of mines pulled out like $6 million worth of gold.
Holy crap! And back then, that's like,
Now,
wow,
granted, I don't know if that was an inflation number or if that was $6 million then, or if that was the inflation number for now. But I mean, either way you go about it, I mean, if it
still a
was
lot of
then,
gold.
obviously, to now, that's a lot of freaking gold.
Yeah,
Um, and I want to apologize if anybody hears me. I am in process of moving my office recording place to another room, so it's probably echoey and you hear a bunch of extra stuff, so it'll be better next time. So Phantom Canyon is said to be plagued with spirits from the former railroad workers and the mine workers from there as well. Anybody that don't know, back then, railroad work was treacherous. There were lots of people that died in the production of making rail lines. The most famous of the spirits that plagued this road is of a prison inmate. This particular inmate was, and I couldn't find this particular one's name as of yet, but he was seen wearing his prison uniform from the 1890s. He can be seen walking the former FCCR route. So part of the lore to this particular prison inmate that you could see walking down through there, it's believed that the name of the road, the Phantom Canyon Road, the Phantom Park came part of the name of the road because of the first sighting of this man walking on the tracks in the 1890s wearing a prison uniform. The person that saw him said it looked just like the man that was executed just a few days earlier. And he's been reported to be seen multiple times since the original. But that's the lore of this road comes in the lore of the name of the road, they said, was named after actually seeing him a few days after he was executed.
that's pretty interesting.
So that's my short one. That's about all I have on the
Nice.
Phantom Canyon Road. So
That's
if
still a
anybody's
nice
out
one.
that way, that might be somewhere you want to go. I mean, even if it's just for the nature drive down through there and see the scenery, maybe you can run across something spooky.
Absolutely. So I've got two more. I got a longer. It's not a long one, but a longer one and a short one. But I'm gonna save my short one for the last because it's trying to think of the best way to put it. It's short, but it's to the point. All right. So my long one is called the Hand Hotel. The Hand Hotel was named after the builders Jacob and Jesse Hand, which was husband and wife. The hotel was built in 1932 to be Fairplay, Colorado's most luxury hotel. It featured amenities like boiler heaters in the room, radiators in the room, things like that, state of the art
Oh
type
wow.
stuff. The hotel is known by the community to be called Grandma Hand. And the reason for that is because she loved to use her own personal collection of Western artifacts to decorate the hotel. The builder of the Hand offered guided hunting trips and fishing trips to their patrons. If you came back X amount of times, stayed with them, they're like, hey, look, we'll throw in this guided trip for free. The two owners would eventually pass away, leaving the hotel to their children who would ultimately sell it. So Jacob passed away well before Jesse. Jesse passed away when she was in her 80s, and she actually passed away having a heart attack coming back from a guided fishing trip. As time went by, the hotel would basically become condemned, just like most hotels do, due to the lack of maintenance, people not caring, children not caring, things of that nature. There we go again.
Correct.
The next owner would buy and renovate the hotel to help get more visitors, but that ultimately made it lose its original look, the features, and the atmosphere of it. So in turns, they actually lost customers because customers were coming back for that atmosphere and the features that it had. That owner, after seeing, hey, I can't handle it, would eventually sell it to the current owner who has fully restored the building to its original way. I mean, knocked sheetrock back to the original painting and everything.
Nice.
So before this building or this hotel was built, as in the first one, another fire took place. This happened in the 1920s, which destroyed everything in its path as well. Now that hotel stands on the same grounds that it was burnt on, but it takes up more area. So they expanded it.
You know what caused the fire on that one?
I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
There's a particular reason I asked of that for this one.
I don't know. Um I have a possible idea, but I don't want to say yet.
Can I tell you my reasoning why I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
wanting to
yeah, yeah.
know? You said this particular hotel, one of the amenities it had is it had radiators in every room.
Yeah.
So if anybody don't know what a radiator is, it's a at that point in time is a very modern heating element. So instead of having to have a fireplace in every single room, you had a radiator. So the warm water or whatever ran through this radiator, and it had basically kind of like fins or vents on it. So
Yep.
as it went through there, it heated it up and it let that ambient heat come off of that. So the reason I was asking about the fire is because they did have the modern amenity at that time of radiators. So the fire element should have been a lot lower without having to have a fireplace in every room or,
Yeah, you would
to heat.
think.
Yeah.
You would think for sure. And in fact, I've got, or I can find the picture. There's a picture somewhere that still has the rooms still have the same radius. Obviously, they're newer, but where they were
But they still
placed,
have
they
radiated
still
heat.
have radiated heat in the rooms now.
Oh, that's neat.
It's pretty cool. There are tons of reports in the Hand Hotel of full body apparitions that manifest on the second floor in particular
With heads this time.
with heads, full body apparitions. Now, this is actually a pretty cool story. It kind of have you ever heard of the haunted hotel?
The movie?
Yeah, the movie, the haunted hotel movie.
Hmm.
You know how you just walk around, you see these ghosts, but they look like regular people, and you talk to them and carry on conversations and stuff.
Right?
That's kind of the same scenario here with the hand.
So people are saying they've actually talked to some of these.
Yes, and I'll get to
Really?
that. I'll get to it. So on the first and second floor, in one or two guest rooms, I can't remember which one. There's one on one floor and two on the other. But there's reports of seeing random faces in the mirrors appear when people are looking at them.
I said
Some
that would be pretty interesting to
it
see.
would. I honestly feel like I might pee myself if that happened. I'm like, who's looking at me?
Well, I mean, at
That's
that point in time, do you start getting that the lure of the dimension, the mirror dimension? You go to a different dimension through a mirror.
well,
So
see, yeah, there you
yeah,
go. So now that's
yeah,
where we get into we're getting a little wild here, Brent.
there you go.
Some reports say that you can see imprints of children laying on the beds. And housekeeping has, I mean, noted on several different occasions that they'll make the beds, tidy everything up, lock the door, and whenever guests go back in, they're reporting that the bed sheets weren't made, everything's ruffled up, it's a mess. And the housekeepers are like, no, we definitely, you know, we dotted our I's and crossed our T's. And there was one housekeeper that actually made the bed and everything and came back 2 hours later and it was already messed up.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's after locking the room where nobody else can get in, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Right.
So another report says that the hotel has 5 different quote unquote visitors. I don't know which one. I'm going to talk on, I think, 2 of them particularly. One of them was reported by a daytime receptionist who said that she has personally seen multiple entities roaming the building. She saw a figure standing in the window of room 6 when she passed the door. She stated it was an opaque shadow figure that vanished when I stopped to look again. The former hotel owner, Pat, shared many encounters, but this one strikes me as being interesting. It is about two little girls who haunt the hotel. They both passed away during the smallpox epidemic and are often seen by the staircase as well as making their presence known in the kitchen. The kitchen.
Words.
Yeah, hard words. I mean, small word, but hard word. So when they're in the kitchen, this has happened a couple times. The cooks have reported that the pilot lights on the stoves would get turned off. So the owner, after hearing this, she chalked it up. Oh, well, maybe you accidentally turned the pilot light off. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, blah, blah, blah. Owner said, okay, well, this keeps happening. I'm going to go investigate. I'll go look down in the basement because that's where all the gas lines ran and everything and see what I can find.
I see the recipe for a fire.
Right. But what she wound up finding is right next to the gas lines, she found the electrical wires were charred where electricity was arcing back and forth.
Oh, wow.
And that's right next to the gas line.
Right.
So yeah, you can definitely see that there is a possibility for catastrophe to happen. But Pat thinks the two young girls that died during a smallpox epidemic were trying to save the hotel and prevent another fire that took place years prior.
So when you say years prior, there was 2 fires at this hotel?
No.
Or just talking about that one?
Just talking about that one, the same fire,
Okay.
but they were trying to, in her words, they were trying to stop another fire from happening.
Right. Stop the repeat.
Correct. So one of Pat's friends, she was brought one of her friends in. I can't remember her name, so we'll just call her Sue. She brought Sue into the hotel just to kind of walk her around and say, hey, this is what I've got, this, that, and the other. So Pat was busy. She had to go manage something at the hotel. She told Sue to walk around, just kind of wander and get an idea of what the place is about. So while Sue was on the second floor just looking around, she met an older man pushing a cart down the hall who referred to himself as Ben and told her to give him a call at any time if she needed anything. Sue was so happy that she ran back down to Pat and complimented the gentleman saying, hey, Ben's such a great guy. He told me if I have any questions or any problems to let him know. So Pat's face turns pale white and she turns and looks at Sue and says, who's Ben? Sue says, well, it's one of your staff workers upstairs, one of your housekeepers. Pat says, no, there's no one here that is working today. And there's nobody that's ever been hired named Ben. So Pat went back in the hotel records and found that Ben used to be the hotel caretaker and the manager of the hotel who had passed away in the hotel years prior to her buying the place. That's one of those, yeah, they have full-on conversations with people.
That's date.
Right. And to this day, people still meet Ben. He still roams the second floor.
Really?
Yes.
So this place is still open
Yeah.
and running today?
Yeah.
Nice.
The guests also what? Go ahead.
Is Ben seen any particular time, or is it day, night, whatever?
It doesn't specify.
Okay. Well, apparently it's got to be during the day or something too, because if
right, because she had a guest there.
They're right when they're not out just cleaning rooms at 3:00 in the morning.
So in the basement there used to be like a little child care area, and they would have kids run up and compliment the little dog that played with them downstairs and show that they had little nibble marks on them and things like that. But there's never been a dog in that hotel.
Oh, wow.
People have heard growls and barking all throughout nighttime and even had their bed sheets pulled off of them, like tugging at them like a dog would tug at sheets to wake somebody up. They've seen that. And guests also continuously have conversations with multiple visitors about a party that's going on the third floor later in the evening, which there is no third floor in the building.
Oh, nice.
So was there a third floor before it burned down? Were they a part of the fire? Was the party the reason the fire started?
Right.
And then on top of all that, Obviously, you've got smells. The smell of Grandma Han and her husband, they still randomly come and go throughout the hotel. The smell of her perfume and his pipe tobacco. You can still book reservations there, but in my opinion, I just want to say make sure you're tucked in tight and ready for a ride because that hotel is definitely one of the high kickers of paranormal experiences in Colorado.
I'd stay there.
Sounds pretty cool. But that's all
Oh,
I got on that one.
it. I like that. What's the name of that one again?
That's the Hand Hotel.
That is one I would definitely stay at if I was there too. Next one I have up is a place called Cheesman Park. This is around Denver area. Cheesman Park is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Denver. It is occupied by a 80.7 acre park, so quite a large park. In 1859, Mount Prospect Cemetery was opened on 160 acres. By the 1880s, new cemeteries were being built closer to town, and when they were being built closer to town, they were people were buying plots in this cemetery, and more people were being buried there. The families were buying plots there, and all more than because it was closer to town.
And people were just dying to get in there.
They were. So at that point, the city wanted to. This was great real estate that was right there, and they wanted to make a park out of it. So, in process of making this park, there was a provision in the sale of the land that required Congress to approve the transition to make that become from a cemetery into a park. Well, it took a little while. That finally happened on January the 25th of 1890. That's when that was Congress did approve it. So part of this cemetery that's there, they had 5,000 bodies that needed to be moved. The city offered free plots in some of these other cemeteries for the families that were already buried there to be moved into one of their free plots into another cemetery so they could turn this into a park. After several years of this happening, only 700 bodies had been moved at that point. So that's when the city decided they needed to do something to speed it up some. So they hired an undertaker. His name was McGovern. McGovern, he was hired on. He had a contract with the city at this point to move these at $1.90 per coffin. So he'd dig it up, move the coffin, $1.90. That equivalents to today's dollar as in $66.84 per coffin.
That's a lot of work for $66.
Oh man, don't you know it? Don't you know it?
I'd say like 150, maybe $200. But dude, still think that's 6 foot down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back then they were using shovels.
They were.
So were they actually 6 foot deep that back then?
Well, I mean, you're even talking about this is in Denver. You're in a mountain area. You're in a mountainous
Oh yeah, that's
area.
true.
So it's not just going to be just digging in red clay either. It's going to be, well, I mean, the holes have been dug. They got bodies in them. So the ground's been broke before.
Yeah, but still, dude, when roots take place and all that.
Right. I mean, it's still going to be that it's been packed again.
And years and years and years of soil growth and water pressure and all that, it just packs it down.
Well, he had an idea. He's doing this work, so what's he going to do? He digs them up. He splits the body parts up, starts dropping them in more coffins, and he's moving more coffins at this point in time. So soon thereafter, there began being body parts and pieces of other coffins just strewed out all around the park. Because he's got this scam going on where he can make more money off of moving, in essence, moving one body multiple times.
Yeah.
So only digging up one. So at this point, the city pulled McGovern's contract from him after he removed about 1,000 bodies. He was cutting these bodies up and moving or dismembering them and moving them around like that. So when they say 1,000 bodies, I don't know if that actually means 1,000
full bodies,
full bodies or if that means he moved 1,000 coffins that were split up. Also, in today's equivalent, 1,000 coffins. So if he was getting paid, he'd have made about $64,793 in today's money. So at that point, they pulled his contract. And then the city, instead of hiring somebody else to continue this job and keep moving the bodies, they just decided to take another way about it. What's that way? Let's just pull up the headstones that are there. Forget the
Oh,
bodies. Let's leave
yeah,
them.
yeah. Let's just not worry about the corpses that are underneath your feet. Let's just get rid of the evidence that they're there.
That's correct. And that's what the
Yeah.
city did at this point. All they did was remove headstones, and we called it job done.
Wow.
So, with that being said, there's an estimated about 3,000. We had they said about 700. He moved about 1,000. There was 5,000 to begin with. So they said there's an estimated 3,000 plus bodies that are still buried beneath the park till this day, right now. So, with that being said, there's things that happen in the park, things that are seen. There's different things that go on. So, just south of this park, just south of Mount Prospect, there was a place called a pest house. And what this was it was a house for people that had extremely contagious or terminal diseases, like small, just like you said earlier, the little girls died of smallpox. It
Right.
was a place for those to go. The place, the pest house that was there, people with smallpox and other contagious diseases went there. Sometimes they went there just, we're going to go there to die because we have nowhere else to go. So during that time, that cemetery was very active because there was so many people that was dying right there. Thousands of people were brought there and left to die. The area where the pest house was at is currently a street lined with pristine homes. And the Denver Botanic Gardens is also on the land that was part of the Catholic portion of the cemetery. And the Chinese cemetery, the part of the cemetery that was the Chinese part, was redeveloped into portions of today's Congress Park. And the rest of it was just built over and it's now just residential homes. Out of these homes that are surrounding the area, there's multiple ghostly encounters reported inside of inside of the homes that are right down through there, throughout the park, and just all the surrounding areas right there. Say, I was making fun of you about words. Words, they're hard.
Words are horribly hard.
There's a horror film called The Changeling. It was inspired by by some paranormal activity that the writer of that script experienced while he was living in a mansion in Cheesman Park. I have not seen that movie, but it kind of
I
makes it
haven't either.
intriguing to go look it up.
Well, now that you're talking about the place, you said it's called the Chainling.
The Changeling.
Changeling. You don't? Will you put a in the show notes? Can you put the name of that movie?
I can. Absolutely, I will. And still till this day, there are still bones that are, whenever work's being done, there are still bones that are found in both Cheesman Park and in the the Denver Botanic Gardens. There was
Wow.
a project that they were doing at the time of the research of the article I was reading for the research. At that present time, as early as 2010, there was some irrigation work that was going on in the botanical gardens, and they uncovered 4 skeletons that was near a park's pavilion.
Oh, nice. And to do
So
irrigation work, you're not digging that deep, so that means they're floating up.
that's right. That is exactly right. But that makes it interesting too. So, well, I mean, back then it's not like they were in lead vaults or anything either. So you just had wood coffins that were buried. So, that's what was we talking about, late 1800s? A lot of those wood coffins don't exist anymore. That is called the Cheesman Park. And that is all I have for that one. That was one of the ones that I found very, very interesting. And that's a place I would very much like to visit. I wish I would have known that because when I went out to Colorado several times, I was out in the Denver area. And if I'd have known about this, I would have definitely went there. One of the days I was there, I didn't have anything pressing one particular day I was there, so I took a drive up to Estes Park, and that is where the Stanley Hotel is.
Yeah, you
And
were telling me about that.
Yeah, the I got to check out the grounds around the Stanley. I'll post my pictures, my actual personal pictures that I took of the Stanley of the outside of it. I got to walk around the outside of the Stanley. I went into the lobby. I didn't get to go into the restaurant of the Stanley. Um, that is one of the places where they say the piano plays by itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's into the restaurant, and I didn't get to go up and down any of the hallways. But the Stanley it was a very, very interesting place. The energy feel when you're there, it's very interesting there
Can you
to
feel
say.
it?
It's just, yeah, yeah, you
You just
can.
feel
It's
that pressure.
inside that place. It feels heavy when you're
Yeah.
inside it. Yeah.
I've
But
had some places I've been that were like that.
yeah, I'll save it for another time, or actually, I can give a real quick. But the anybody that don't know about the Stanley, it was the purpose of it being built. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but the guy that built the Stanley Hotel, the purpose for him building that hotel was he was dying of said disease. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but he built the hotel because they said a higher elevation would help him, that he would be dead within a year. Something like that is one of those kind of things. He built the hotel, he moved up there, and he lived like 50 more years or something. It was something ridiculous.
That's interesting. Freeland Oscar Stanley.
Freeland.
Freeland.
Yep. What you got? What's your last story?
I'm looking this up real quick.
What about Stanley?
Aha. Freeland had tuberculosis.
It was tuberculosis.
Yep.
So that was his purpose of it. Is he built that hotel to move up there because they said it would help him. It's something about the elevation or whatnot would help him, and he moved up there and he lived another set amount of years that
That's
was
crazy.
way, way beyond what they said he was going to live.
That's actually pretty interesting. I didn't know that
There's
backstory
there
on the Stanley.
if anybody's ever up that way, when you go into the Stanley, you can go into the when you very first walk in, you can go down some stairs to the basement that is there, and there's a museum down there of several of the movies. Dumb and Dumber,
The
part of that
Shining.
was the Shine. Well, so the Shining is based upon. Everybody wants to say it was the Shining wasn't filmed at the Stanley. The Shining was he actually stayed at the Stanley, and he said he was inspired to write The Shining from his experiences that he experienced there.
Ah,
So The Shining, the actual movie with Jack Nicholas, that was not filmed at the Stanley, but they did make later on. They made another made for TV series movie. You know, it's one of those 3 or 4 part
right.
series movies. They actually, in that one, they filmed at the Stanley.
Pretty interesting.
Part of Dumb and Dumber was filmed at the Stanley.
Yeah, I remember that episode or that little scene in the movie.
Yep, that's when they showed up with their was it blue and yellow suits.
Yep.
Yep, that's the Stanley Hotel.
So the last one I have is a pretty short and simple one, but it's pretty interesting. This one's going to be on the Lumber Baron Inn and Gardens, which was once the home of a lumber baron named John. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Mowat, Mouat,
Okay,
in the late 1800s. It was built to be a 9,700 square foot mansion. That
that's especially at that point in time. That's
huge,
quite large.
huge.
I mean, even in today's time,
That is
that's a big
big.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like many historic buildings, it's been passed through many owners until it was nothing other than a ran down tenement building. During this time, a terrible event unfolded, leaving 2 young women murdered. In 1970, a 17-year-old runaway was brutally raped and strangled to death. Shortly after that, her 18-year-old friend would come and check on her and found the scene of her body where the murdering rapist would ultimately shoot and kill her. These were and still are unsolved cases, by the way, Brent. And I guess you could say it's also the blame for the paranormal events that take place here. Maybe the ghost is looking for some kind of justification for their assailant. Because, I mean, 1970, that guy's probably still alive.
So
People,
when this particular inn is this place You said it's
Mm-hmm.
not open?
Mm-mm. It is. It's been
Oh, it is
renovated.
still open?
It's been renovated.
Okay.
Um, People still experience seeing apparitions in the Valentine room, the hallway, and in the stairs. They also report noises, cold spots, and chills near the area where the two young girls died. And there was one instance where one person heard the scream of a young female, like a blood curdling scream
Right.
that lasted 10, 15 seconds from what the person reported. There was an investigation group called Spirit Paranormal, who during their two separate investigations received the name of the murderer of the 1970s case, but
Oh,
never,
interesting.
yeah, but they never released it to the police, and they didn't do anything else with the information. But as in most other places, there's also familiar and unfamiliar smells. For some reason, the smell of pipe tobacco still roams the area. So if you decide to stay here, you might want to listen out for any kind of noise, or maybe two young girls or something along that line that were possibly murdered. Well, we know they were murdered, but may still be roaming that area.
Right. Interesting. Which one do you think you'd be more apt to not want to have the smell or the disembodied scream?
Ah, man, dude, I could probably deal with the smell.
That's me. The disembodied scream that would be. Well, I mean, is it you just hear somebody scream out in the hall, or is it you're here, you hear the scream, but there's nobody around?
That's what it is. That's what it is.
So that would be very eerie.
Yeah, like this person was actually walking down the hallway, and it happened like right in her ear, from what she said.
That's creepy. Very, very creepy. I have a few honorable mentions, I guess you would say, that I'd like to. It's not really stories, but since we're talking about Colorado, there were so many places in Colorado that could have been in this that I would like to just say some of these. So if anybody's out and about, if they travel there, these are places. If you're into the haunts, the spooky places, these might be sites that you might want to go and look at. Stanley Hotel's one that we mentioned.
Yep.
Um, the Colorado Prison Museum, that is another one. The Hotel Colorado, that is in Glenwood Springs. And the Prison Museum is in Cannon City. Molly Brown House, it's a museum now as well. It's in Denver.
Yeah, I read on that one. It's pretty interesting as well.
Yep, that's the unsinkable Molly Brown for anybody that knows that story. Hotel Jerome in Aspen. And one of the big ones I want to mention, I did say this name earlier once, but anything in Cripple Creek, if you want to have some kind of a good chance of a spooky experience, just go to Cripple Creek. Anything around Cripple Creek, go there. Because it's just like one after another kept popping up. Cripple
Yep.
Creek, hotel, casinos, the hotels there, the surrounding lands, everything around that place. That's one of the big ones. Did you have any honorable mentions that you would like to
I
say?
didn't. You actually hit the only honorable mention I had, which was be the Molly Brown.
Okay, perfect. Colorado is a very interesting read. I've never really looked into a lot of the places out there, but I enjoyed this one.
I did as well, Brent. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we cut out?
I'm there. I pretty much said everything I wanted to say about this one. I enjoyed digging into Colorado, and I look forward to the next one. And that is which one again?
New Hampshire.
Beautiful. So we'll take a trip to New Hampshire on the next episode.